Have you ever crossed paths with someone and felt, without explanation, that something had shifted, as if the air itself paused to take notice? Maybe it was someone you only met once, or someone you've known before, but this time, it felt different. You hear their name on the radio. Their favorite song plays when you walk into a cafe. You dream of them vividly. And the strangest part? You hadn't been thinking about them until the universe brought them back into your orbit. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the Psyphos Depth channel and join our community where you'll get early access to new videos and insights on personal and spiritual growth. And if you've ever experienced signs like these, drop a comment below and let us know. Where are you watching from? And what's the most unexplainable synchronicity you've encountered? Now let's begin. There are moments when it feels like life itself is choreographing something. When the laws of coincidence don't quite explain what's unfolding. You meet someone and suddenly time seems flexible. Events align, songs echo, dreams persist. You bump into them in the most improbable places. And as all these threads weave together, you start to ask yourself, is this fate? Is the universe trying to tell me something? Carl Jung would say yes, but not in the way you might think. For Jung, such connections weren't about fairy tale endings or cosmic matchmaking. They were about the psyche, the inner world, the unconscious forces moving beneath the surface of our awareness, drawing us toward growth, healing, and ultimately, wholeness. He believed that nothing significant happens by accident, that certain meetings are not just meetings, they're messages. When someone repeatedly appears in your life, in thoughts, dreams, signs, it's not always because they're your soulmate in the romantic sense. Sometimes they are mirrors, mirrors of something you're meant to see within yourself. And the universe? It becomes the messenger. Not with words, but with symbols, with moments, with meaningful coincidences. Jung called this synchronicity. Events that have no logical connection, yet carry deep symbolic meaning. And these events begin to intensify when you are on the edge of an inner transformation. Think of it like this. Your soul is preparing to evolve, to shed, to step into something truer. And this person, this reappearing figure, they are a trigger, a catalyst, a living invitation to face what's ready to be seen. You see, our unconscious is always trying to communicate with us. But it doesn't speak English. It speaks in symbols, in images, in moments that bypass logic and go straight into your gut. When someone appears in this symbolic way, showing up in dreams, crossing paths again and again, it's not random. It's not delusion. It's your unconscious, reaching out to your conscious mind, saying, pay attention. This matters. And what does it want you to notice? Often, what you're seeing in the other person isn't just them. It's you. Or rather, a part of you that you haven't yet integrated. In Jungian terms, this might be your shadow, the traits you've disowned, denied, or hidden. Or it could be your anima or animus, the archetypal masculine or feminine aspect of your psyche. When you feel an intense, inexplicable pull towards someone, chances are they're carrying something you're not yet embodying. Maybe they're deeply emotional and expressive, and you've spent your life keeping feelings under control. Maybe they're powerful, assertive, unapologetic, and you've played small, out of fear. Whatever it is, the connection isn't just about them. It's about what they awaken in you. And so the signs begin. You think of them, and they message you. You try to move on, and they show up in your dream. You hear their laugh in a crowd, their name in a book, their words echo in moments of stillness. These synchronicities aren't magic tricks. They are psychological currents, the unconscious creating ripples in the external world, trying to bring something to light. But here's the truth. Most people don't want to hear. These connections are rarely peaceful. They're not always comfortable because they stir the soul. They rattle the ego. They challenge the masks we wear. You might find yourself questioning your path, your values, your past relationships. You feel cracked open, unstable, moved in a way you can't explain. That's because these connections are not meant to stabilize you. They're meant to transform you. Jung warned us that soul-level encounters are often initiations in disguise. They invite us into deeper self-awareness, not to stay attached to the other person, but to retrieve something we lost within ourselves. It's not always about union. Sometimes it's about awakening. The person is not the destination. They are the door. This is where many people get lost. They confuse the door for the home. They believe the one who stirred their soul must be their soulmate. But here's the thing. Sometimes the most powerful person you'll ever meet was never meant to stay. They were meant to show, to reflect, to break you open, so you could meet the version of yourself that's been waiting underneath. And yet, the pain is real. The longing, the confusion. You feel their absence like a phantom limb. You keep seeing signs, keep wondering what it means. Is it unfinished? Is it fated? Are they thinking of me too? Jung would gently remind you, these signs are not promises. They are processes. The universe isn't giving you guarantees. It's giving you guidance. If you're willing to look inward, every sign can become a step, a breadcrumb, a lesson. The external synchronicity mirrors the inner readiness. So when you ask, why do they keep appearing? The answer might not be about them. It might be about you. You might be wondering, if it's all about me, then why does it hurt so much? Why does the connection feel so unfinished, so urgent, so vivid, as if some thread has been pulled loose but never tied again? That ache you're feeling, that pull towards someone you barely know or can't fully explain, is not madness. It's memory. Not memory in the traditional sense, but something older, something deeper. It's a psychic echo. According to Jung, when we're drawn to someone with that kind of intensity, it often means an archetype has been activated. Archetypes are universal patterns embedded in our collective unconscious, inherited forms, older than us, older than culture. When one of these gets stirred, it doesn't just touch your personal story. It reaches into humanity's shared mythology. You're not just seeing a person, you're seeing a symbol, a gateway to something your soul is ready to reclaim. This is why a stranger can feel familiar, why a casual encounter can feel like a reunion, why you sometimes love people who make no logical sense for your life. Because love at this depth was never about logic. It's about initiation. An archetypal love, soul-level love, often begins by stirring the places inside us we've locked away. Our old wounds, our forgotten strengths, our unlived lives. So the universe starts sending signs, not to trick you, not to tease you, but to remind you that something within you is waking up. That maybe this person carries an image you've projected, an image that holds everything you once denied. Your softness, your voice, your hunger, your power. And now, that image is asking to be owned, not by merging with the other person, but by integrating what they mirror in you. But here's where things get complicated. When we haven't yet met our own shadow, that is, the parts of ourselves we suppress, reject, or fear, we often meet it through another. We fall in love with people who stir our darkness, who shine light on our unhealed places. And because it's uncomfortable, we call it passion. We mistake activation for connection. And sometimes, we hold on so tightly to that person, not because we truly love them, but because we fear what life looks like without that reflection. This is why projection is so dangerous and so necessary, because in the beginning, we need it. We project our unmet needs, our internal stories, our hopes onto someone else because we're still learning who we are. But eventually, projection becomes a prison. And if we don't start to see the person as they truly are, flawed, different, human, we don't love them. We love the image we built in our own mind, and then the pain begins. because no one can hold your projections forever. No one can carry the weight of your idealization without eventually falling. They disappoint you, or they pull away, or they simply can't meet you where you want to be met. Not because they're wrong for you, but because they were never the answer. They were the invitation. That's the moment everything changes. When the fantasy crumbles and all that's left is reality. When you're no longer being guided by longing, but by awareness. You ask yourself, what was I really seeing in them? What was I really hoping they'd fix in me? What did they awaken that I now have to face alone? And that right there, that moment of reflection, is the beginning of individuation. It's where healing begins. Individuation is the lifelong journey of becoming who you truly are. Not who society told you to be, not who trauma shaped you into, but the you that's been waiting underneath it all. And the relationships that feel destined, fated, cosmically orchestrated, they are often the ones that mark key turning points in that journey. Not because they completed you, but because they confronted you. You may never forget them. You may always feel something when their name is mentioned. But over time, the ache becomes softer. The pull becomes wisdom. The story becomes sacred. Not because it ended the way you wanted, but because it led you back to yourself. And the signs, they may never stop. You may always see echoes of that person in dreams, in passing faces, in lines from a song. But now you'll know, those signs aren't about going back. They're about going deeper, into your own psyche, your own journey. They are reminders, markers, symbols that you're still evolving, that your soul is still responding to what it once touched. And if they return, if the connection circles back around, years later, at a different time, in a different form, you'll be different too. You won't need them the way you once did. You'll meet them not with hunger, but with presence. Not with a projection, but with curiosity. And you'll ask, who are you now? Who am I now? And what are we meant to reflect to each other this time around? Because that's the truth Jung pointed toward. Love is not static. It's not a fixed story. It's a mirror that evolves with you. And the more conscious you become, the more you stop chasing mirrors and start seeing yourself. So if the signs are still appearing, if you're still dreaming, still wondering, still feeling, let it be a doorway. Let it take you inward, not to cling, not to ache, but to listen, because the soul speaks in patterns, and those patterns are not maps to someone else. They are invitations to come home. There comes a moment, often in the quiet after the storm, when you realize the connection wasn't about permanence. It was about presence. You were meant to meet, meant to be shaken, stretched, seen. But not all soul encounters are built to last. Some are built to ignite, and when they do, something irreversible happens inside you. You begin to see differently. You begin to feel things you once buried. You begin to hear the whisper of your own forgotten self. That's when the universe stops being some distant force and starts feeling like a partner. Not in the romantic sense, but in the deeply personal, deeply spiritual sense. It becomes a mirror, reflecting your readiness, your longing, your fear, your courage. And that person who crossed your path like lightning and stayed like thunder, they were the lightning rod. They channeled a truth you were avoiding, a part of yourself you weren't yet brave enough to reclaim. And here's where the heartbreak becomes holy. When you see the other person as not just a missed opportunity, but a symbol. When you stop asking, why did they leave? And start asking, what did they leave in me? That shift, from blame to meaning, changes everything. It doesn't erase the pain, but it transforms it. The ache becomes insight. The longing becomes movement. The story becomes a ritual of remembering, because the most powerful thing someone can give you is not forever. It's a reflection of the you you're meant to become. But this reflection, this mirror, comes with responsibility. The universe might send signs, but you choose what they become. You can either chase them, trying to recapture what was, or you can embody them, turning them into growth. You can either obsess over what might have been, or you can ask, what is life inviting me to awaken now? And that question leads to deeper territory. It leads to the parts of you that never felt worthy of being chosen. The part of you that's always waited for someone else to make you feel complete. The part that confused love with rescue, connection with escape. You see, these powerful relationships don't just show you what's beautiful, they show you what's broken. They bring the unconscious to the surface. And if you're paying attention, you realize the universe wasn't giving you a love story. It was giving you a mirror that reflects both light and shadow. Because what is a soulmate really? Not someone who magically fits you, not someone who always agrees with you, but someone who disrupts you, gently or violently, in exactly the way your soul needed. A soulmate is a mirror that doesn't flatter. It doesn't soothe. It exposes, it triggers, and in doing so, it gives you the greatest chance at wholeness. Not through romance, but through reckoning. Jung believed that the unconscious guides us toward wholeness through images, instincts, and encounters. And often, those encounters carry the face of someone who awakens what we've ignored. They might look like love. They might feel like fate. But underneath it all, they are catalysts. Psychic events dressed up as people. Archetypes cloaked in skin. And here's the truth. It doesn't matter if they stay. It doesn't matter if you end up together. What matters is how you use the mirror. Do you let it reflect you back to sleep? Or do you let it awaken the truth you've buried? Because once that truth is seen, it cannot be unseen. You begin to realize that the person you thought you needed was never the destination. They were the signpost, the flare in the dark, the cosmic knock on the door of your heart saying, it's time. Time to stop outsourcing your worth. Time to stop romanticizing pain. Time to stop abandoning yourself for love. Time to stop confusing longing for purpose. And most of all, time to remember that the love you've been searching for begins with you. That's the gift. That's the lesson beneath the ache. That the universe may send someone to spark your transformation, but the fire is yours to carry. The journey is yours to walk. The wholeness is yours to reclaim. And that's what makes it so difficult and so sacred. You can't stay asleep after this kind of love. You can't go back to the old way of connecting. Shallow conversations feel empty. Surface-level romance feels fake. You crave depth. You crave truth. You crave the kind of connection that sees you, not your image. And until you find that, you walk alone. But not lonely. You walk with yourself, your wounds, your wisdom, your wholeness. And eventually, you begin to attract differently. Not people who need you to complete them, but people who have already begun the work of completing themselves. Not people who want to be rescued, but people who want to grow. Not people who only see your light, but people who can hold your shadow. And when that happens, something remarkable unfolds. Love stops being a high. It becomes a grounding, a return, not a rescue mission, not a projection, but a meeting, real, raw, revelatory. And that meeting is not a reward for your suffering. It's a mirror for how far you've come. It's the universe once again whispering, now, you're ready. You're ready not because you've perfected yourself, but because you've finally stopped hiding from yourself. You've felt the sting of illusions breaking down. You've stood in the silence of someone's absence and still chose to listen for what your soul was trying to say. You've stopped chasing signs as validation and started reading them as invitations. You've come home, not to a person, but to your path. And when love comes again, as it always does, you won't rush to possess it. You won't lose yourself in it. You won't need to turn it into a story to make sense of the ache. You'll sit with it. You'll breathe with it. You'll let it be what it is. A meeting of two sovereign souls, not filling each other, but reflecting one another in truth. Carl Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." That's the essence of what these destined connections are. Not fairy tales, not endings, but alchemy. And true alchemy is not about gold. It's about fire. It burns away the false to reveal the real. It doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you are. Unfiltered, undiluted, alive. So what do you do with the one who changed everything? You let them live inside you, not as a wound, but as a window. You stop asking if they'll come back. You stop waiting for closure. You stop needing the signs to keep appearing in order to feel that the experience was real. It was real, not because it lasted, but because you did. You lasted, you integrated, you transformed, and now you walk differently, softer, clearer, fuller. And as you walk, new signs will come. Different ones, not echoes of the past, but markers of your becoming. Dreams that no longer revisit old lovers, but introduce you to new dimensions of yourself. Encounters that don't trigger longing, but awaken recognition. Not because the universe is testing you, but because it's celebrating you. Because you've shown that you're ready to meet life and love from wholeness, not hunger. This is where destiny evolves. Not in fated meetings, but in chosen awareness. Not in hoping the other completes you, but in knowing that you are already whole. The soul doesn't long for perfection. It longs for integration, for presence, for truth. And love, at its highest form, becomes the space where those things are honored. You begin to love with fewer words, but deeper listening, with less projection and more perception, with fewer fantasies and more reverence. And perhaps one day, you will sit across from someone, and you'll recognize not your lost self, not your shadow, not your savior, but a fellow traveler, someone who has also danced with fire, who has also read the signs, who has also stood at the crossroads of longing and becoming and chosen the road inward. You won't need them to carry your pain. You'll invite them to walk beside your healing. And if they stay, beautiful. If they leave, still beautiful. Because the love will not be measured by duration, but by depth, by what it revealed, by what it mirrored, by how it shaped your journey. So the next time you feel that pull, that knowing, pause. Not to obsess, but to observe. Not to attach, but to awaken. Ask, what is this showing me? What in me is being reflected? What story is my soul trying to tell through this encounter? And then, listen. Listen with your body, with your dreams, with your intuition. Let the signs be teachers, not traps. Let the ache be a doorway, not a detour. Because what the universe offers is never just about love. It's about evolution. It's about remembering, or they simply can't meet you where you want to be met. Not because they're wrong for you, but because they were never the answer. It was always the self you were becoming. This is Psyphos depth, where we don't just tell stories. We walk into them. We meet ourselves in mirrors. We trust the process, not just the promise. And we hold space for love that liberates, not binds. If this message resonated with you, share it with someone who once felt like more than coincidence. And if the signs keep coming, it might not be about them anymore. It might be about you, finally ready to become everything your soul already knows.